NALE, the Herald of Justice. What is his story so far in the Stormlight Archive? Let's talk about it. Hey guys, it's Christian from Lost in Discovery, and today we're going to be talking about NALE. My last video about who the Heralds are and where they come from did so well, and some people asked for a more in-depth look about some of the Heralds and what they've been up to. So I thought it would be natural just to start with one that's really prominent throughout the Stormlight Archive, and that is NALE. Now, before we get into the video, there's a spoiler warning. Spoilers from the Way of Kings all the way up to Oathbringer, and very much including the novella Edgedancer. There are spoilers for the whole Stormlight Archive here, so if you're not up to date, please come back to this video when you are. There are no spoilers for Rhythm of War, so if you haven't started reading the preview chapters, you're all good to watch this video. Alright, all that's out of the way, let's get on with it. As I mentioned in my previous video, each of the heralds are representative of a certain aspect of life, and NALE is the Herald of Justice. Now, you can always spot him throughout the Stormlight Archive because of the very distinct birthmark he has. On his cheek, he has a crescent birthmark on his cheek, and when Sanderson doesn't mention him by name, he always makes sure to describe this certain birthmark so you can spot him. Okay, so let's begin at the start of his story. In the prelude to the Stormlight Archive, we see that all the heralds stick their honor blades in a circle to acknowledge the end of their oath pact. It's over, they're betraying the oaths they took for honor, and they're going on with their lives. All of them have left those blades behind except for NALE. He, at some point, has retrieved his blade. I also mentioned that each herald has an order of Knights Radiant that worked under them, and NALE's order is the Skybreakers. Now, there's a very famous historical event called the Recreance where the Knights Radiant also betrayed their oaths, killed their spren, and moved on with their lives. That's a whole other video in itself. But the Order of Skybreakers didn't do that, and they kind of just hid in the shadows over time. So the type of spren that bond with the Skybreakers still existed, but they really respected NALE, and NALE could personally choose who would be chosen as a Skybreaker Knights Radiant. So over the years, he's been hand-picking sort of his crew of Skybreakers. Now, because NALE is Herald of Justice, everything he does is kind of determined by what he perceives as justice or the law. Over time, this has been warped and distorted because of all the torture he's been through, and how just the effects of the guilt of betraying the Oath Pact and the fact of being alive for thousands and thousands of years. You'll notice in my videos about the heralds that I'm going to do is that they're all kind of crazy and all their actions don't necessarily add up in the most logistical way. Their minds are a bit altered by time and guilt. NALE still wants to stop the desolations from happening even though he's betrayed the Oath Pact. The way he thinks to do this is by killing potential Knights Radiant. Because they're not that of the Skybreakers, he sees them as a kind of a wild card and they can't be trusted and bad things are going to happen. So he's decided that a spren that's starting to bond with someone to become a Knights Radiant, we need to stop that right now. And we see many examples that we're going to talk about later in this video. But he's not just on a rampage without any reason behind it. For all of these murders that he's committing, he backs it up with a law. So if these people have broken the slightest of laws, he uses that as paperwork and justification for ending their life. So that's basically the idea of what NALE's been doing over the past few thousand years. He betrayed the Oath Pact, he had enormous guilt, but he still wanted to stop desolations. His warped idea of that was killing budding Knights Radiant, whilst hand-picking some Skybreakers for himself that he personally thought were worthy and understanding of his cause. So that leads us to the first main appearance of NALE in the main book series. The first major appearance of him is in the fateful night of Gavilar's assassination. Now, we've gotten little tidbits of seeing him in the background, but the most prominent one so far is probably in the Words of Radiance prologue chapter from Yasna's perspective. Yasna notices a man with a crescent birthmark on his face, which is NALE, and he's talking to another man, presumably Kalik, another herald. He's starting to express his worries about Ash, another herald, which we'll get to, and he's starting to think that he's getting worse, and he's starting to worry that he's starting to lose his mind, as are all the heralds at this point. It's a long time before we get a hint of NALE again. The next time we sort of hear about him is in a Words of Radiance interlude chapter, and we see a humble little cute cobbler who is starting to bond with a little spren. That's not good, is it? This is a Knight's Radiant about to come to life. We need to stop this properly. And NALE shows up with the classic birthmark, you know him straight away, and he ends this man's life for a crime he's done in the past, and it's very kind of sad for this guy. He seems extremely nice. The spren that was bonding with this cobbler happened to be Windle, who soon bonds with Lift, the girl we all know and mostly love. Some people don't like her, but yes, this spren ends up bonding with Lift. He does mention it in their kind of shenanigans. He's like, man, I was about to bond to a really nice cobbler and now I'm stuck with you who thinks I'm a Voidbringer, but that's a whole other thing. So this is where NALE starts to really shine in the Stormlight Archive. He takes a major role as the main villain in Edgedancer, which is Lift's story. As Lift is breaking into the Palace of Azimir with her friend Gorks, NALE attempts to kill her. In the crossfire, he ends up slashing her friend Gorks. Lift used her radiant abilities to revive him. All the politicians are like, oh my god, this is our new leader. Gorks becomes the leader and kind of pardons Lift's execution. NALE is kind of like, fine, you got the paperwork now, but I'll be back later. So this is when NALE continues on his quest to keep killing these budding Knights Radiant. During this kind of break section after the end of Words of Radiance, he has picked up Seth and kind of recruited him into his group of Skybreakers. He's kind of revived him after his battle with Kaladin, and he's saying, I'm going to give you a second chance, and he gives Seth the sword Nightblood, which is a whole other video in itself. You'll notice that when I talk throughout these videos, all of these topics could be extrapolated to many other areas, and all which are so deep that they deserve their own videos. So if there are any sections in this video that you are particularly fond of and would like more information about, let me know. Alright, let's get back to it. So basically in the climax of Edgedancer, it's a standoff because NALE is about to kill a budding Knights Radiant. He came to the revelation that this was the actual lady that ran the orphanage. She was very suspicious that all these children who were coming in with mental disabilities or physical disabilities, they were starting to get better. Little did she know she was healing them by accident. NALE was off to kill this person. This was a dangerous prospect. The Everstorm is coming in at this point. Lift brings it to NALE's attention. This is where a shocking moment happens and NALE breaks down in tears. He kind of realizes that all his work and all his killing has been for nothing. The desolation has still come. He completely breaks down in front of Lift. Lift ends up hugging him and it's a very nice scene. Off he goes into the sky and disappears. He is not okay with what's going on. And you really feel for these heralds because they had good intentions at heart, at the start at least, and their mind gets so warped and distorted to the point that they are just a bit of a mess, even if they mean well. So eventually he comes back and he picks up Seth and drops him off at the Pure Lake. And at the Pure Lake, they are kind of training a new group of Skybreakers. Seth is with this new group of people and he's regaining his abilities and swearing new oaths to become one of the Skybreaker Radiants. And this leads into the battle that's happening at Thaylen City. This is where we start to get a better idea of what NALE's ambitions are for the rest of the story going forward. We get that crazy revelation in Oathbringer that humans are actually foreign to the land of Roshar and the native people were the Parshmen, and it kind of flips the whole series and flips the whole ideals of many people on its head. NALE says, you know what, he's like, honor's dead, honor lost, Odium is the winner now and this is his world, and he kind of says, whose law should the Skybreakers follow? That of the humans or that of the real owners of this land? He sides with the Parshendi and he's like, I'm gonna fight for them. And he kind of queries to Seth like, what are you gonna do? What's your choice? And Seth, throughout this whole kind of character development of Oathbringer and Edgedancer, has found out his whole life has been a bit of a lie, and he wants to fight for someone honorable, someone who is fighting for justice, but maybe not in the same way NALE is. And he says he's going to fight for Dalinar. And he says, I swear to follow the will of Dalinar, this is my oath. NALE's pretty fine with this. He's all good. He's still friendly with Seth, and he goes off to another thing that he's going to do. It's unsure what he's going to do next, but he tells Seth, I'm going to come back soon and I'm going to teach you the Surge of Division. So it sounds like he's still going to train Seth in some matter, but he's still fighting for the Parshendi at this point. He's decided that the most law-abiding, you could say, thing he's doing is fighting for the Parshmen because they are the rightful owners of this land, therefore he should be defending it for him. So his whole idea of what he was fighting for has kind of been flipped on its head, and now it seems like he's going to be fighting for the Parshendi, but he still doesn't hold it against Seth that he's going to be fighting for Dalinar. So it's going to be an interesting kind of development there. Now, rewinding it all the way back to where NALE is at Gavilar's feast. It's unclear what he was doing there and what the purpose of him and potentially Kalak were doing at the feast. It seems that they were worried about Ash, who plays into the story a bit later. So that remains a mystery, and I feel like we're going to get a bit more of that, or the next piece of the puzzle in the Rhythm of War prologue. So I hope you enjoyed this summary of NALE's story so far. If you would like the story of other heralds that are prominent in the story of the Stormlight Archive summarized and explored upon, please let me know. I'd be happy to do that as well. As I've said before, this is part of my series Countdown to Rhythm of War, so if you are interested in Stormlight content, please do subscribe. I'm doing it every Saturday up until the release of Rhythm of War. It's getting really close now. I'm really pumped. Please like it if you did, please comment if you have anything to say, and please subscribe if you would like more. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys all in my next video.